Zambia Blog Talk Radio.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Blog Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Blog Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Blog Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And it will stay on the recorded shows.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Zambia Blog Talk Radio. It is Saturday, March 26th, and we are glad that you have joined us. Please tag a friend and let them know that the show is on. We are on Zambia Blog Talk Radio. That's our name on Facebook, and ZBTR TV on YouTube. We have a great show for you, a great discussion. We have a gallant Zambian who has served his nation very well for many years. Let me introduce my co-host here as we get going before we introduce our guest, my dear friend, Vashibukombe Francis in Orlando. Hello, Brother Francis.
Good morning, Mr. Nkama.
How are you doing today?
Oh, we're doing fine. How's Texas?
Texas is good, and Zambia lost its fourth Republican president. We'll be talking to one of his close friends. And how about that? What's your expectation?
I'm very, very excited because this man is a legend. And for some of us, they don't make them like this anymore. So I would like to find out more.
They don't come in his brand anymore, right?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, let's welcome our guest here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our guest, Dr. Vernon J Mwanga. Is a veteran politician and I would say a founding member of our great nation, Zambia, because he was part of the team, a diplomat, accomplished author. He has written a number of books, and he's also a lecturer and professor at Copperbelt University. Dr. Mwanga, welcome.
Thank you very much, Nathan, for having me on the program. And how is Texas treating you?
Texas is treating us very well. It's a little bit cold, but you know, it's winter now, but we are transitioning to another type of weather. How is Lusaka today?
No, Lusaka today is a bit warm, but the last few days have been a bit chilly. I also have a sister, as you probably know, who lives in Dallas.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, well,
yes, I hope she's watching us and joining the discussion. All right.
I sent her the link.
That's good. That's very good. Thank you for doing that, because we need to get as many people as possible to get into this. Dr. Mwanga, we have you here today because not only did Zambia lose its fourth Republican president, but you lost a colleague, a friend, somebody that you have known. In your tribute, the first paragraph of your tribute says, you and the late Arabi had been together for more than 60 years. That's a long time, Dr. Mwanga. That's a long time.
It is a long time, but he has been he was a true friend and brother of mine for more than 60 years. And his loss was a loss for me personally. And I'm so sorry that it had to happen, especially at this time when we needed his wisdom around a lot more. So it was devastating for me because we had a small group of friends, inner circle of friends. He was one of them. The late Morton Kam was another one.
Yes,
and then we had Alex Chikwanda, we had Alinani Simbole, the late Alinani Simbole, and Walter Piri, who is fortunately still alive. So this was our close circle of friends during the struggle for independence as well as after the struggle for independence.
Excellent, excellent. Where and when was the first time that you met President Banda? What was the occasion?
It was in Livingstone. He was at the clerical school, which was run by the post office. He was doing a course to work for the post office as a clerk there.
Okay.
And that's where we first met. I was going to school then at Shungu, upper primary school in Livingstone in the 50s.
Yes, sir.
So that's where I first met him, but we just met very casually, and we said, oh, we should meet again. And for sure, we did meet again, and we stayed friends until God called him.
So you met in Livingstone, like you put it, and then somewhere along the way in the political struggle, you got reconnected. What were your roles as youth, as you were in the earlier stages of the struggle for independence?
He was in the UNIP youth group movement. So was I. I was a provincial youth secretary for Southern Province, and he was a youth in the Eastern Province. Later on, he came to Lusaka. So then, in anticipation of independence coming,
yes,
UNIP had a very foresighted policy at that time of wanting to educate people, because we realized that we had an education deficit in the country, because as you probably know, the education system was based on race in our country. There was the Ministry for European Education and another one for African Education. So it's we were disadvantaged as blacks. So UNIP, KK, they organized a scholarship for Pia to go to Addis Ababa University. He went there for a few months, and later on, a scholarship was found for him to go to Lund University in Sweden, which is where he completed his bachelor's degree in economics.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, because it was always said that he had a bachelor's degree in economics, and that's basically why he understood some of the economic policies and did very well when he became president, when he took over, late President Mwanawasa. Your first posting, Dr. Mwanga, was Deputy High Commissioner to London. Then you were moved to what was then Union, USSR. I can't remember, Francis, the middle names, USSR. What is Union Soviet, Union Socialist?
Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
Okay, republics. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. I only remember that.
Which includes Ukraine.
That's true. That's very true. That's
part of the Union.
Yes, that is a topic for
I used to cover
day.
Ukraine as ambassador to the Soviet Union.
Ah, wow, wow. So you were sent, first you were in London as Deputy High Commissioner, then you were sent to the USSR.
In 1965, I was appointed ambassador to the USSR at the age of 21.
These days, it sounds like those things don't happen, right, Francis? Those things don't happen these days. 21 years old.
Well, records are said to be broken.
Huh?
Records are said to be broken.
That's very
So I'm
true.
looking forward to my records.
Has that record been broken?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
I'm saying
That's
not
why
yet because I'm sure one of these days it will be broken.
yeah, that's why I'm saying that those things don't
I'll be
happen
very
these days,
happy
though.
the day I hear that it has been broken.
Uh-huh. So when those things were happening on your side, what were Arabi's movements? Where was Arabi in this picture?
Well, after I finished doing my diplomatic training at Oxford University,
Yes.
I was posted as a second secretary trainee to the British Embassy in Rome to do practical work. And then from there, I was posted to Genoa to do consular duties. So I returned home in August 1964. That's about the same time that Arabi was returning from Sweden, where he had just graduated. And then we were put on a course, among others, which was run by the London School of Economics from August up to October 1964. And then in October 64, we started, KK came to the training institute, which was at NIPA, and he started calling us one by one and telling us where we were going. Arabi was appointed ambassador to Egypt, and I was appointed deputy high commissioner to the United Kingdom. Morton Kama was appointed first secretary at our embassy at the United Nations, at the UN mission. So he went to Cairo, I went to London. And time came when he needed an operation to remove tonsils. So did I. So we decided that we should have our tonsils removed on the same day at the London Clinic, which was the best hospital in the UK at that time. So we went there, we had the operation the same day. We were in the rooms next door to each other. And we spent 2 or 3 nights in the hospital, and then we came out. And it was time for him to get engaged to his first wife, his late first wife, Hope Makulu. And there was a reception held at Paul Lusaka's house, who had now become our deputy high commissioner, because I had then been appointed ambassador to the Soviet Union. And we went there. That photo was showing, that's the day when the engagement party actually took place.
Okay, so this was at Mr. Paul Lusaka's house?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Paul Lusaka's house. And as we saw the engagement off, they subsequently got married in Lusaka. I was the best man. I came from Moscow to be best man.
To be best man at the wedding. Oh, wow.
Yes. And I was teasing Mrs. Vanda at the time. I was saying, oh, you just settled for the groom instead of settling for the best man. and it became a very major laughing point during the wedding.
I can only imagine. That's very interesting. Francis, you can always jump in at any point whenever you have a question. At a certain point, before I proceed, you have any questions, Francis, for Dr. Mwanga before we move to something else?
Yes. First and foremost, I just want to say it's an honor to be with one of our pillars, really. There is no way Zambia can be mentioned when we talk about politics without your name, sir, being mentioned. I remember I came across you and your life when I was in 10th grade. I was in a literature class. And the first book they introduced us to was The Extraordinary Life of VJ. It's one of the best books I've ever read. I looked for it. I even text your son to say, where can I get the copy? But I haven't got it. But yeah, so it's an honor, sir, to have you here. I want to find out, at the age of 21, you're posted. The president saw something in you, and he gave you that duty to represent the country. What made you consider politics? What pushed you?
Well, my father, Samson Mwanga, was a teacher. So was my mother. But my father was also president of the Northern Rhodesia African Teachers Association, NORATA, which was very closely associated with the African National Congress in the very early 50s.
Yes.
So each time Mr. Hari Mwanga Nkumbura came to Livingstone where we were, he stayed in our house. And I could hear my dad and him sitting on the veranda talking about the future and talking about politics, about the future, and saying that we need more people to be involved in this so that we can gain independence as quickly as possible. One of the reasons why he used to come to my dad's house is because you probably not know that spirits like whiskey and brandy, gin, wine, blacks were not allowed to buy those drinks.
Oh, wow.
My dad got a special permit because of the level of education he had reached from the provincial commissioner to buy those drinks. He's one of the 3, maybe 4 blacks in Livingstone who had that opportunity. So they would congregate at my house, at my dad's house, and drink whiskey. And I would be the little boy being sent to collect water for them to replenish their drinks. So by listening to these 2 people talking, and especially that each time Uncle Harry left, the police came to raid our house at 4 a.m. or 3:30 in the morning, looking for seditious literature. And I kept asking my neighbors, the boys next door, did the police come to your house as well? They said no. So one day I gained enough courage. I asked my dad, why is it that the police come to our house after Uncle Harry is left? What are you 2 doing? He said, don't worry about it. We're fighting for you, your generation, to make sure that you govern this country. We don't want any white rule anymore. We are fighting for your generation. So slowly building on that, I began to take an interest in the politics. The only thing is that my dad was disappointed when I decided to join active politics. I didn't join my uncle's party, ANC. I joined UNIP because I found UNIP views a lot more in line with mine. And my political views in terms of colonialism were always radical. But I felt that the ANC was too soft in confronting colonialism. So I went to UNIP, which disappointed my dad. But my mom and my sisters were very happy that I went to UNIP. Created a bit of a split in the family.
Very interesting, very interesting. At a certain point, our colleagues will join us later here. My friend in Canada, and Kasulula, I believe is with you there. At a certain point, Dr. VJ, I believe it was around the mid-70s, you left politics for the private sector. How's your relationship and what kind of interaction were you having with Arabi?
My interaction with Arabi continued right at every point I interacted with Arabi because we had been such close friends. At one time, I should have mentioned that when Arabi went to Sweden to study at Lund University, he became the representative of UNIP in Sweden. And I was sent by Dr. Kaunda to go and attend a conference of the Swedish Socialist Union and to speak at that conference.
Yes.
When I arrived, that was before independence, much before independence. Arabi is the one who met me at Stockholm Airport, together with another Zambian then, by the name of Emmanuel Chalavese. And they looked after me until I left and went to London. So our interaction, there was never a break in our interaction with Arabi, regardless of who was doing what. Because when I left Moscow, you may not know, I was recalled from Moscow in 1966 because KK wanted me to head the Zambia National Intelligence Service.
Yes.
So I am the one who started the service, took it from the police, where they were called the Special Branch, set up the service as a civilian service using an act of parliament, recruiting people to join the service, better educated people, sending them for training abroad, and establishing training schools here in Zambia for them, for the ones who couldn't go abroad to be trained here. So I was able to achieve that mandate in 1968 when I said to him, I have done my part now. I would like to go back to the profession I love, which is diplomacy. And that is when he told me that he had a very interesting job for me. And he would tell me about it in 2 weeks. In less than 2 weeks, he called me and handed me a letter. He said, I've appointed you as my ambassador at the United Nations. That was in 68, which came as a surprise to me, but I accepted the appointment and recommended my deputy at the time to take over from me as director.
Okay.
So it has been a long journey.
Sorry. Honorable Mwanga, you mentioned, it's nice that we're remembering Arabi and just seeing what you guys did for the nation. You mentioned something that you met Arabi for the first time when both of you were just youth chairmen. You said you set up a next day meeting. You decided, let's meet again. What triggered that? What did you see in him? And you, all these 60 years, why have you kept the friendship?
Well, first of all, we were both very interested in listening to the BBC. So we were following independence movements in other parts of Africa. Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Nigeria. And we were saying, well, they're getting independent. And the whites here are telling us that independence will not come in their lifetime. What are we doing? You know, those people have fought for theirs. When are we going to fight for ours? So that's how, in a way, that battle, the connection, we remained connected because of talking about the need for independence, for black rule, and the need to get rid of colonialism.
Do you see a difference today in the way the politician approaches politics? For instance, your generation, your crop, you cared more about liberating the black Zambians and black people in general. Do you see something different in today's politicians? Because if we look at the politicians today, some of the stuff that we see is people get into politics to get rich. Your crop was different. What's your take on that?
Well, I agree with you. I've met a number of young politicians who think that the best way to make money is to go into politics, which in my view is the wrong approach. Because during our time, we never went into politics to make money. When I was regional secretary or provincial secretary, for Choma Namwala, after UNIP decided to regionalize the setups that we had in the party, we were not being paid anything. We were not being paid any money. Even finding food was hard. There are times when we had to visit our prominent UNIP members at very strategic times when we knew that they would be preparing lunch in the hope that we would be invited for lunch. That was how hard life was at the time for us. But for us, it was about service. It was about service to the country and service to the people. Now, some of the politicians, I can't say all, some of the politicians adopt what I call me, myself, and I. That they are the ones that matter. So it makes me very sad because that's not what we fought for. we did not fight for people to get rich. And maybe that is why we left politics poor. And freedom fighters are struggling at the moment in Zambia. As I pointed out to the president the other day when he was hosting lunch for the freedom fighters, I said something must be done for freedom fighters, because in the neighboring countries, they have schemes to look after freedom fighters. Mozambique, Namibia, Angola, Zimbabwe, South Africa, but we don't have any here.
So sorry, Francis, Dr. Mwanga, what you refer to as telling the president to set up the scheme for freedom fighters, you're talking about HH, our current president, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about recently when he hosted us at State House as freedom fighters. I was the spokesperson. This is about less than 3 weeks ago.
Okay. I know Arabi wasn't feeling very well. Did he participate?
No, he didn't. He was not feeling well because you probably know that he has spent almost a month in Dubai receiving chemo. Treatment. And earlier on, he was in Doha receiving treatment. But this time when he came back, I used to phone him every week to find out how he was doing when he was in Dubai.
Okay.
When they returned to Zambia with his personal assistant, Mikatazo Wakumela, I phoned him. I said, "Oh, I'm glad you've arrived back safely." And just from his voice, I could tell that he was not feeling well. He told me, "No, I'm just fatigued, I'm a bit tired." I said, "You don't sound well at all." So later on, I interrogated his personal assistant, Mr. who told me that the situation appeared to be deteriorating. But he said, "Don't tell anyone." So I kept it to myself. I just kept checking on him until I got a phone call 20 minutes after he had passed on. He passed on at 2 minutes past 19 hours, exactly, that Thursday. And I got a call at 20 past 19 hours telling me that he had passed on. And I broke down in tears and wept. And I'm not a very sentimental person, but that loss meant a lot to me because of what we've been through, not just at the official level, but also at a personal level. So, some of the experiences we went through with RB are too liberal to be shared on forum like this.
Who was Arabi as a person? What was his ideology? Who was he?
Well, Arabi was a very gentle person, very cultured, very humorous, very kind, very accommodating, and he always treated people fairly and equally. So he was really a very nice human being. And our parents became so close, his parents and mine, that each time he went to Chipata to visit them without me, the first question they asked him, "Nanga mwanga ikuni?" And when I went to visit my parents without Arabi, the first question I was asked is that, where have you left our other son? And so it was that kind of relationship. That's how close we were. We were very close. So I was not surprised that I broke down in my own quietness and shed tears because of the special relationship I had with Arabi.
To follow up on Francis's question, Dr. Mwanga, like he says, who was Arabi? Was he always humorous even as a young person? I mean,
he was humorous even as a young person. He used to tell a lot of jokes, very funny jokes. He was very humorous even as a young person. And he told a lot of jokes. And for example, I remember at one time when I was ambassador in Moscow.
Yes.
He was ambassador in Egypt, in Cairo. Now, phone calls were not so easy in those days for us to make. If I wanted to ring Lusaka, I had to book the call 72 hours in advance.
Wow.
Through the post office. If I wanted to ring Cairo to speak to Arabi, I had to book the call 24 hours in advance. And then they asked the question, what language are you going to use? Because of censorship, you are allowed to use English, Russian, Arabic, German, French, Spanish, but no other language. So we would say English, we would speak in English. So we would start speaking in English on the phone, and Arabi usually enjoyed lapsing into Nyanja. And he interrupted the discussion and said, he says, Vijay, if we want to Viribe Mitima. An operator came on the line and said, that was not English. If you use that language again, you're going to cut off this call.
Oh, they used to do that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. We've come a long way.
I know. Like we tell the kids here, there was a time there were no cell phones, eh?
No cell phones. Cell phones, no computers, no cell phones. We were communicating with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs using telex machines.
Yeah.
Telex.
I remember.
And when the weather was bad in the Mediterranean, the telexes could not go through to Lusaka. So there was a breakdown in communication. That is why when I went to the United Nations as ambassador, because of the number of votes which we have to take in the General Assembly, and I was a member of the Security Council, I just asked the President, President Kaunda, and my Foreign Minister then, Simon Kapwepwe, to say that you should just give me authority to decide which way we're going to vote, because I was part of the foreign policy formulation, unless I was in doubt, because communicating with Lusaka has become impossible.
Yes.
And they gave me that permission to make the decision on the spot without reference to the foreign ministry, unless I was in doubt.
Amazing.
That's very interesting.
Yes,
so I'll take you to the recent years when Arabi was recalled. First, when he retired from politics, active politics, did you have a chat? And when he was called to come and rescue the country, to come in and stand, did you have a chat with him? And how did you feel?
At one time, Arabi was ambassador in Washington when I was ambassador at the United Nations. So it started from there, that interaction we had at the time. Arabi then was sent to the United Nations as ambassador.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was appointed, I was his foreign minister. Then in 76, when I was moved to the Central Committee, which, as you know, at that time was higher than cabinet, Arabi was then appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs. I did not like my appointment in the Central Committee, so I served there for a short time and I resigned and went into the private sector. Arabi continued for a very short time only as foreign minister, and after that, he also was relieved of his duties and he was appointed general manager of NAMBOD. So we continued interacting. I was working for LONRO. I'm sure you're familiar with LONRO.
Yes.
I was a director for LONRO, Africa director for LONRO, and I was working closely with Tiny Roland, looking after Lonro's interests on the African continent. So I traveled to various countries where Lonro had interests, Swaziland, now Eswatini, Sudan, where there was a large sugar plantation, Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire now. Of course, we couldn't touch the operations in Southern Rhodesia because Southern Rhodesia was under sanction at the time, UN sanctions. So we continued interacting with RB, and we're both out of government, and we continued having lunch at his house or my house, or we'll go to a restaurant and have lunch there. So we continuously interacted.
Excellent, excellent. You're watching Zambia Blog Talk Radio. We're talking to Zambia's celebrated diplomat. That's what I would call him. Dr. Vernon Johnson Mwanga. Dr. Mwanga, RB was recalled out of retirement by late Mwanawasa. Did you have anything to do with that?
Yes, I had something to do with that. He was recalled out of retirement because RB, as you probably know, didn't join MMD when we formed MMD.
No, he
remained in UNIP. So I think when he resigned, left UNIP in 2005. So then 2006, we had this tripartite elections.
Yes.
And by then, RB had joined MMD.
Okay.
And I was in charge of the national campaign committee of MMD. And I asked RB, who was based in Chipata, to lead our team, our campaign team there. So when I went with President Mwanawasa to address meetings in Eastern Province, particularly in Chipata, RB was there. He's the one who they organized the meeting. We addressed the rallies, we finished, we left. I told him, I said, this is the Rupiah band I've been talking about. And so we came back. After the election, which Mwanawasa won, Levy then called me and said, I'm looking for a vice president. And I want someone who will concentrate on the duties as vice president. And I don't want to look over my shoulders to see whether he's campaigning to become president or not. So I said to him, well, I have a candidate for you. He said, who is the candidate? I said, Rupiah Banda. He said, oh yeah, the one we met, the guy we met in Chipata. I said, yes. He has had government experience. He has been a diplomat, Egypt, Washington, New York. He has been foreign minister for a short time. He was in NAMBOD. He was minister for a short time. And I said, for me, he's retired, so you don't have to worry as to whether he's going to undermine your position because he's already in retirement. So I said, can you get me his CV? And I said, yes, I'll get his CV. I got the CV and I took it to him. He said, oh, this CV is very interesting. So can you give me his number so that I can call him? I gave him the number. So I called him and he came to Lusaka the next day. I kept my mouth shut, like every good former intelligence head, and he was called to State House and offered the job of vice president. So that is how it happened. Yes, I had something to do with it.
Why him specifically, Dr. Mwanga? Why him? The country is very broad. You are very connected and you know a lot of political people, politicians in the country. Why RB?
Well, because RB fitted the description that Levy Mwanawasa gave me. He wanted someone who would concentrate on his work, and who would not use that position to campaign for presidency. So given that kind of scenario, I had to find someone who had already gone into retirement. And he was the most suitable of all the candidates that I had.
What was his response? What was his first response when he got this news or information?
Arabi.
Yes.
He was pleasantly surprised, and he accepted the appointment immediately. And then he became vice president. And as misfortune would have it, Levy then passed away. And within the MMD circles, I say to my colleagues in MMD, I had been national secretary.
Yes.
At that time, Secretary General of MMD. I said to my colleagues, you know, I don't think we should look far. We should just get get the vice president to contest the remaining 3 years of Manasseh's tenure of office, instead of looking for a new candidate. I said he has been in the presidency, and the president and the vice president are the only two people under our electoral code of conduct who are allowed to campaign using government transport. I said it will lessen on our expenses since it's just for 3 years. We'll look for another candidate after 3 years. So they said, yes, but we want an undertaking from him that is not going to seek another term. And he gave that undertaking that he wouldn't seek another term. So, but we didn't want to prevent other candidates who wanted to stand. So we agreed that we should leave it open, that other candidates should stand. For example, one of the candidates who stood was Ngandu Magande, who had been finance minister. He also wanted to be president. And he stood, and 2 other people stood. So we had about 5 candidates. So we had to have a secret ballot in the National Executive Committee of MMD to select a candidate. And the ballots that we had produced one winner only. That was Arabi. That is how it happened.
Interesting. That's
how
interesting.
Do you, what do you think? How do you think he governed as president?
I beg your pardon?
How do you think he governed?
Just repeat the question, please. Well, he governed reasonably well. I don't know if you have read my other book called The Long Sunset. I devoted the chapter in this book to the Banda presidency. And as misfortune would have it, Arabi did not like what I had said. Some of the things I said about his presidency in the book. So he appeared on movie TV, and he denounced me and denounced what I had written. I didn't watch movie TV, but I was told. Later on, I asked for a video, which I saw. So when they interviewed me, I said, look, we have been such close friends. We have had honest differences of opinion, which is normal. We cannot agree on everything. But I'm not going to denounce Arabi on a public forum. I will reach out to him and tell him exactly what I feel about what he did by going to movie TV, which is what I did. And I issued a statement afterwards saying that what he did was wrong. We have been close friends. Why didn't he call me so that we could have a chat and discuss about it? As misfortune would have it for him, some of the issues I raised in the book are the same issues which led to his arrest and being charged and appearing in court for those things when Sata became president in 2011. So, but anyway, like all good friends, we put that behind us and we continued as if nothing had happened.
That was good and maturity. Good morning, my friend in the chosen frozen territories.
Good morning, Nathan, and good morning, Dr. Mwanga. This is Roger in the Code Canada. Interesting discussion I've been following.
Wow, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon to you. Very interesting discussion. In our last election, he was your close friend. What role did the RB play in brokering whether Mr. Lungu, from what we hear, again, you have told us you are being a former Shushu. We heard the former president was probably wanted to resist. What role do you think he played in make sure we had a smooth transition?
Well, thank you very much for that question. First of all, let me briefly say that in 2015 and 2016, RB had supported Edgar Lungu for president. I'm sure you are aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out and campaigned for him. Now, this became a source of some tension between RB and myself. I felt that what he had done was not right. But I respected his decision, because in a democracy, we can't all agree on everything. So come 2021, I said to him, I hope you play a much more constructive role this time by ensuring that you don't begin supporting Edgar Lungu, because Edgar Lungu is going to lose this forthcoming election. So he told me that no, he wasn't going to support Lungu, that he would try and remain as neutral as possible during the campaigns. He never went to campaign for anybody. So after the results came out, yes, I saw him and I said, now it's time for you to play your statesmanship role.
That's right.
Play your role as a statesman by convincing outgoing President Lungu that it is right to hand over power peacefully to HH, because in 1991, when UNIP lost to MMD, KK and his colleagues handed over power to MMD peacefully. When MMD lost to PF and SATA in 2011, we handed over power peacefully. Now, we wanted Edgar Lungu to do the same, but he was resisting. The minions around him, the ones who were benefiting from his presidency, were telling him not to give up power and even encouraging him to go to court. So RB, working with the presidents who had come to observe the election, there was the president, former President Kikwete, and the former president of Sierra Leone. They sat together, they discussed this matter, and they agreed, under pressure from us, that they should put pressure on Edgar Lungu to hand over power peacefully. He lost by over 1 million votes. And at first, he said he wanted to go to court because he said the opposition must have interfered with this election. And they told him that that's a joke. The Electoral Commission is a government institution. It falls under you. How do you go out and accuse the opposition of losing an election? You fully. So finally, after pressure, not from these three presidents, but also from serving presidents in the region.
Yes.
Edgar Lungu decided that he would hand over power peacefully to HH. So RB played a very pivotal role in that transition, very delicate transition period, because without that role, I don't know which way this country would have gone.
Is it safe then to say this is why we see some of the young MMD politicians bounce back into the New Dawn administration? Because I see a number of them. Some of them were adopted under the UPND, and they bounced back in government. Do you think that was part of President Akainde saying thank you. And do you think Arabi made that demand? Being a diplomat and being in the intelligence, do you think that that could be a fair assessment?
No, I don't think that that was a factor at all. That was not a factor at all. I think what you should consider is that MMD, as you probably remember, split into two at first. It literally disintegrated, MMD. There was one wing led by Nevas Mumba, another wing by Felix Mutati. Then the court ruled that the legal one was Nevas Mumba's one. But really, the party had lost most of its members who had either gone, most of them had gone to UPND, and a few of them had gone to PF, but the majority of them had gone to UPND. So that was not a consideration at that time at all. It wasn't a consideration. There was no quid pro quo involved in that. And they made individual decisions to apply for adoption to UPND. And they were adopted by the UPND management committee.
That's right. Well, as we almost wind up here, Dr. Mwanga, we do appreciate your time. Two questions. I don't know whether my colleagues would have anything else to say. Having known Arabi for the time that you knew him, what would you attribute his simplicity and how he attained the title President for all people?
I think it has to do with his upbringing. His father, Bwezanibanda, that's where he got that middle name, Rupia Bwezanibanda. His father was Mr. Bwezanibanda. Mr. Bwezanibanda always used to tell him that, my son, you should remain humble. You should remain humble. You should be humble. Regardless of the class of people that you meet, remain humble. So it had to do with his upbringing, and even as he was growing up, leaving home to go to the clerical school or to go to Addis Ababa University or Lund University, that humility, he carried it with him from childhood because that's what his father wanted him to be. And that is what his mother also wanted.
Okay. Bafulwa government a
lot of nuggets, a lot of news in there.
Well, I'm sure you'll come back and we'll finish off. Interesting information there, Roger. A lot of interesting information.
A lot. He started the intelligence service.
Yes, I didn't know that.
I
knew he was director of intelligence.
I know
he started it.
I know.
And he also started the diplomatic school.
The diplomatic school.
I didn't know that. He
Yeah.
helped set it up. Unbelievable.
And he also said you
Okay.
needed. Okay, here he comes. Let's see if we can finish. Okay.
Continue, sir.
Yeah, so it's the humility is something that he grew up with, and I think that that is what his parents wanted him to be, because in the group of people that I mentioned earlier, I was the youngest in that group, whether it was Motonkama, whether it was Wilted Piri, whether it was Alinani Simbole, Arabi, Alex Chikwanda, they were all older than myself. So I had something to learn also from him regarding humility.
Yes.
He was a very humble sort of person. And when he met people, he always talked to them with the greatest respect. And he was very well dressed. He was a good dresser. And in a way, he taught me a lot about wearing nice clothes, and maybe that's why when I was ambassador at the UN, the United Nations Women's Association, they had a magazine which they produced every month.
Yes.
They put the 10 best dressed ambassadors and the 10 worst dressed ambassadors. I was, from day one, I was always in the best 10 of the best dressed ambassadors.
Yeah, when it comes to dressing, Roger, this generation, I remember my father, and he is mentioning Mr. Moton Kama here, my late uncle. They were always dressed up.
Yeah.
Always dressed up. Always dressed up.
I remember Dad always very well. Kamuchanga.
Yes.
I remember him very well.
Yes, sir. I told him I was going to be talking to you today. He sends his regards.
Oh, thank you very much. When you next talk to him, ask him to get in touch with his big brother.
I will. Many of the almost all the tributes about RB Dr. Mwanga, from high-placed personalities to ordinary citizens. One of the interesting things I read were about journalists who covered RB. And I hope that one journalist said it was a hot day, and she didn't, it was hot, and RB said, you are sweating, and I think he gave her the hat or something like that.
Yes.
One journalist gave a tribute and said it was a cold day, and he looked at her and said, Iwe mwana, iwe mpepo, things like that. One journalist.
That is the RB I knew.
Yes. People person, very simple person.
Very people person. And he would look at someone and say, oh, the person manza. Manza or atumfana afanja person jagudia. That was RB, all right, and that was part of his character. That was part of his DNA, and that DNA, my remembrance of him will forever remain with me until my time comes for the Lord to call me.
RB, yeah. When was the last time you spoke?
Well, just I think it was 3 days before he died. I called to find out how he was, and he didn't sound too well. And of course, I was getting some intelligence information regarding his deteriorating state, and that's how the president HH ended up going to visit him. I think 1 or 2 days before he passed away. So that's how it happened, and I was very, very heartbroken when he finally took leave. As you know, his first wife, Hope Makulu, died of cancer. Now he was diagnosed. Well, his second wife, the one Mrs. Banda now, Tandiwe, was also diagnosed with cancer. Now RB himself. That's a very unusual occurrence.
Yeah, it is.
Doesn't normally happen in that kind of line when husband, wife, and wife. Cancer is not contagious. It's not a transmitted disease.
How do we honor people like RB, Dr. Mwanga, going from here? We Zambians, I think, I don't know if it is an African disease, we tend to forget about our fighters very, very easily. What say you to us to continue honoring some of these gallant Zambians and freedom fighters?
Well, I think that, first of all, not enough has been written about the struggle for independence involving the freedom fighters that you're talking about.
Yes.
Our curriculum doesn't even mention the fact that there was a struggle here. Now, our children in schools, high schools, universities, they learn more about the American War of Independence, the French Revolution, and other things. But they don't learn about how we got independence and how much we had to fight to get independence in Zambia. Fortunately, there is a team of academics who are working on rewriting the syllabus.
Okay.
And they're using me as a resource person. So I think they'll complete their work and we'll see our syllabus rewritten to embrace our own history of the struggle here in Zambia, so that our children can learn about what we went through during the struggle. The freedom fighters remaining now are very few. There are very few of us who are remaining, and very soon there will be no more freedom fighters left, and they won't be able to tap into the knowledge of freedom fighters. And I think that something must be done to look after freedom fighters like they do in neighboring countries. Arabi, having been president, is buried at Memorial Park, which is not Memorial Park, at Embassy Park, which is where all other former presidents are buried. At least he has got a special place. But a lot of the freedom fighters now, they just die and they're buried as nobodies, which I think is wrong. And when Arabi was president, by the way, he had was just about to appoint a committee to look into the fate of freedom fighters. When the election came, and then he lost the election, when PF came, they were not interested in that, and they pursued other agenda items, and that's how it happened. And Arabi was willing to appoint a committee to look into the plight of freedom fighters, but after that, the idea died.
Quick one, Dr. Mwanga. I think this one is very important. You know that the American system, when a president dies, they build a library and things like that. I think Ms. Joyce here is asking, does Dr. Mwanga does he think Zambia should build a presidential library where all this history should be found? What do you think about that?
It is a good idea, because really we have been very poor keepers of our own history, Zambia.
It's true.
I'm ashamed to say, and we have not recorded a lot of things which happened. Like when I go to CBU and I'm lecturing, and I keep referring to incidents which happened during the struggle, everyone is surprised, shocked, and surprised. You mean you went through all that? You mean you don't know what we went through? So it just shows that there is a deficit of information. That needs to be filled, and we need a presidential library which would accommodate all the writings and histories, backgrounds of the speeches made by all these presidents in one place, to help researchers when they're doing research. And I fear that, for me, that is a very good idea, the construction of a library, presidential library, to accommodate all the presidents who come and go.
That's true. Dr. Mwanga, the people who are listening, watching, they are asking how they can get your books. Are they on Amazon? How can we buy the books, especially those of us out here?
Well, I've got 4 books. There's my first one was The Long Sunset. Sorry, no, An Extraordinary Life. The next one was The Other Society, it's called. And then the other one, another one which has to do with looking back. And then The Long Sunset is the latest one. The Long Sunset, it's about 500 and something pages. It contains a lot of information on various aspects of political life at that time. We want, we are going to put the books on Amazon, But for now, the books were being sold at Planet Books in Osaka and also at Book World.
Okay.
But I'm told the latest I have is that they've run out of. We keep reprinting and the books are running out, and especially An Extraordinary Life, which was an award-winning book. It was voted the African Book of the Year.
That's good.
It was on sale in Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi. So we have reprinted that one more than 15 times. But it keeps selling out very, very quickly. As people
it's a good sign. It means the Zambians are reading, Dr. Mwanga.
Well, what it means is that some of them are beginning to read. When I was editor-in-chief for the Times of Zambia, UNESCO did a study. We were producing 72,000 copies. And UNESCO did a study which showed that for every copy, 5 to 6 people read it. And that was a much smaller population. Now, they're saying that the newspapers are not even producing half what we were producing during our time. And the population has grown. Wow. Part of it, of course, is being attributed to the fact that there is internet now and people can go online. But how many people have got internet connection in Zambia? It is estimated that only 7%. So our reading culture is still very poor. It will have to improve going forward.
Yeah, it has to. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our show today, remembering RB, Zambia's 4th Republican president, and our guest was Dr. Johnson Vernon Mwanga, a good friend of former president. They'd known each other for 60 plus years. I'm not even 60 years old, Dr. Mwanga, 60 plus years. Yeah, Dr. Mwanga, we do thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathan, for having me. And thanks to your colleagues who joined you and who also asked questions. We'll continue to pray for you.
Thank you.
To wish you all the best in everything that you're doing over there, whether it's Canada or USA or whether it's Dallas where you are, Nathan. We wish you all the very, very best.
Thank you, sir, for taking the time. And we're going to take a brief moment and just reflect on Arabi. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. That worked out well.
Yes, it did.
Yes, you came a bit late, eh?
Zambia Blog Talk Radio.